Ati was so when you go so Amoshe, no number one channel, and news a cost so any day about our money, me your call, near coffee training, your son, so near the Abram Namos, no matter, and sem at our cost so our minimum. Nemo in 71 as a better age, as I don't say, you do, and the MI say, that was one call, I would see and sem our custom, need the about our money when I say a bar, and the accountants here are also at the amount.
President John Mahama has issued an executive instrument to restructure the established new ministries within the civil service, effectively reducing the ministries from 30 to 23. My colleague Winston Taki joins me in studio as we go through the 23 ministries. Now, briefly, let's go through the 23 ministries,
yes,
Winston. Yeah.
So, provision in the law gives the President that mandate, and he stood on the Civil Service Act 1993, Section 11, Subsection 3 of PNDC Law 327, and that gives him the provision there. So as of today, the full list of 23 ministries were released. He indeed promised that that was going to happen, and he started working on that. So we'll go straight to some of the ministries that are critical for the success of his program as president. And first of it is the Ministry of Finance, which already we've seen Kesatu Forsen, who will be heading that ministry, and energy as well. We've seen Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Interior, and the Ministry of Defense. These are initial ones. Meanwhile, we still have the Ministry of Education. Already he's met with stakeholders in the education sector, trying to bring about the current situation in the sector. We have the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition.
That will be quite new. There was Ministry of Energy, but it seems to be now extended to
absolutely
green transition. Yeah.
And you realize that when we talk about Ghana's transition plan, there have been development in that sector. Therefore, looking at where the world is going based on climate change, new energy, bringing all that into perspective is critical that Ghana participate in the global transition conversation. That is why I believe informed adding transition together with the Power Ministry, Ministry of Energy, making it the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition. Okay. We also have the Ministry of Roads and Highways, which have also been established. We also have the Ministry of Transport, which is quite different from the Ministry of Roads and Highways. That was initially we had the Ministry of Roads and Highways and Transport all together, and that is a bit of separation there. We also have the Ministry of Sports and Recreation. I think basically we'll get details from the sports team on what they expect from the sector going into subsequent.
One would have thought recreation will be under tourism, arts and culture.
Absolutely.
I actually see why they may want to merge it with the Ministry of Sports. I see that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice also is an established ministry to stand on its own under this government. The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. We have the Ministry of Local Government, Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, whilst we have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs standing on its own as well. There are some key ministries that were scrapped, which will come to that shortly. But before that,
we see that he's also merged the Ministry of Local Government together with Chieftaincy.
And for any for and some so any the eba mining muna is a so egusu with you now so adventure our family fefe and the mammy our comment section for in some ebisu eswaso essay.
And religious affairs, which yesterday Kofi Eje predicted so much on the polls, and I can see that he's gone on that tangent.
It quite makes sense. So if you add the local government, their connection with the chieftaincy institution, make it accessible to the decentralization structure in our government system. So I believe it's well in the right direction there. We have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Communication and Digital Technology and Innovation. This we see where digital media comes to play. The regulation of the sector becomes critical. And there were calls that why don't they tax especially digital media because of the revenues that are generated from online activities, and therefore it makes sense to bring regulation to that effect. So we have innovations there. And talking about the environment, there's the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology. Also, there's a whole Ministry of Youth Development and Empowerment. Initially, we had the Ministry of Youth and Sports basically. And so therefore, I believe this is critical based on the number of policies that the government intends to establish, bringing in the youth, ensuring the youth are given the needed skills and information, especially SMEs and related development there. So they intend to empower the youth, and we are yet to see the various policies that may come up as a result of this particular ministry. And meanwhile, we still have the Ministry of Works, Housing and Water Resources. These are also key there. Talking about our housing situation, where we are now, whether government will still be visiting these affordable housing policy.
Definitely.
Yeah, that is critical. If you look at...
Does this mean that the Ministry of Sanitation is somehow being...
It's been scrapped. It's one of the scrapped ministries that he believes are not necessary. We already saw the challenges that the sanitation ministry faced under the previous government. If you look at our current sanitation issues related, especially regards to the various municipalities, refuse collection, the structured employment, and even the payment of independent stakeholders within the sector. We have the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection coming up there. We have the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts. And this sector, there has been consistent conversation even before the election, bringing key stakeholders within the entertainment and arts sector. They believe that it's a very formidable sector. With right investment, Ghana can attract key investment from that sector as well. Now, this is a very interesting one. The Ministry of Labor, Jobs and Employment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Once, always, every year, every election year, one key conversation is 10 billion jobs, 1 billion jobs. But seeing that the intentionality to have a ministry dedicated to it makes quite sense. At least we can assess data based on the various structures that may come up there. So we'll be following up on that particular ministry subsequently. Now, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the previous governments had key strategic policies, and there have been recommendations that they should continue with the policies, although there have been challenges with regards to the implementation of such policies there. Ministry of Fisheries and Agriculture also is something that has been prioritized by John Mahama's government. The last of it is the Ministry of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry. The combination of this particular sector is very formidable. If we talk about the nation's trade engagement, it's something you saw during the inauguration, how businessmen came to welcome.
Ghana is open for business.
Basically. Right. And also another area that has to be prioritized, the African Continental Free Trade Area. As the Secretariat is in Ghana, the key issue is how many Ghanaians are conversant about the benefits in that structure. How can they be involved in showing the benefit that when they trade outside the borders, what are the means, what are the provisions, and these are things that needs to be...
Quickly, per our analysis, we're assuming that about 5 ministries have been scrapped. Which ones are these? So
the key ministries that have been scrapped are sanitation, which you mentioned earlier. Also, Ministry of Information have been scrapped. We also have the Ministry of Railways. Initially, we had the railway sector standing on its own as a sector, and we also have the Ministry of National Security being taken off the whole tangent.
Okay.
For her and a rum for any meeting with one sim I also any day ever and what on my name maintenance and sim we do which I don't know at the brim be show and not your frame your hair Ghanatube so much from.